So you're considering becoming an organ donor, and just before you check the box, you come across this video.
It's disturbing, and it's happening more and more across the country. In New Mexico, a woman named Danella Gallegos was rushed to the hospital and declared beyond saving. Because she was listed as an organ donor, they began prepping her for organ removal.
The first problem is he makes it seem as if this patient who's an organ donor comes to the emergency room, the staff notices that she's a donor, says there's nothing we could do for this person, let's go straight to the OR immediately and start harvesting the organs for donation. But that's the furthest thing from the truth.
But right before it happened, she started blinking. She was crying. Her family swears she was responding. The transplant coordinator called it a reflex and suggested giving her morphine to keep her still. The hospital refused.
My suspicion is he really doesn't have any experience with the organ procuration program. As a board-certified anesthesiologist with a fellowship in critical care medicine, I have been involved in hundreds of these cases. And when a patient comes in who's an organ donor, we have to establish brain death before we can even go to step one of organ procurement. The fact that she was moving her eyes and crying and being responsive means that she's never been a candidate for organ procurement. But there's one important fact that you have to note in both of these instances, is that the director of the harvest team said, let's give some morphine, sedate them, which is wrong, they shouldn't need sedation, and let's get going. And the rest of the staff said no, and neither of these cases proceeded. You see, organ procurement is quite a process, and there are a lot of people involved. The harvest team has at least 3 people on it. You're going to have a few nurses, some scrubbed in, some nurses that are not sterile nurses to get different things. You're going to have an anesthesia team as well. All of these people are going to look at the patient and make sure that they have been indeed declared brain dead. And when we're talking about brain death, we're talking about complete global dysfunction, including the brainstem. So what's the process of finding out if someone's brain dead? Well, the first step would be admission into the intensive care unit, at which point an intensivist and a neurologist will do an extensive review of the patient. The first thing they're going to check is for simple things. Can there be some medical issue causing this non-responsive comatose state? Could the person have taken drugs and sedated their brain to the point where they're no longer responsive as well? Could there be trauma involved that might resolve after a healing period? All of these things are going to be step 1. In step 2, they're going to look for brainstem reflexes. So they'll look and see, do your pupils change when exposed to light? If you touch the eye with a cotton swab, will they blink? Do they have a gag reflex? And then they would check for apnea to see if someone's breathing. A person who's brain dead has lost all brain function, including the brain stem, so they would not be able to breathe on their own. So the apnea test is performed. They're taken off the ventilator and they see, is there any spontaneous breathing going on? At the same time, the carbon dioxide levels should rise. After these studies, they're going to do the more invasive studies to look at cerebral blood flow. They're going to get EEGs or brainwave studies to see if there's any electrical activity. They're going to check for cerebral blood flow. Most of the time they use a transcranial Doppler to determine if there is any blood flowing into the brain. Other times they could use radio-labeled isotopes or even do an angiogram. But a person who's brain dead has no cerebral blood flow. If all of these criteria are met, they can declare that person brain dead. But they're not going to do it in just one shot. These are going to be redundant tests. They might get 2 or 3 EEGs. They might repeat all those physical findings, including the cerebral blood flow study. And after serial testing, if nothing has changed, that person will be declared brain dead. He made another mistake. He said they're bringing living people to the operating room. They're alive. Yes, they're definitely alive. They have to be alive. Once the heart stops beating, all of those organs are now useless. They have no brain stem, there's no brain function, but they do have a beating heart, and that's an important distinction. They're brain dead, but they are still alive. So no, unless a team of ghouls happens to come upon you, it is extremely rare to have a patient get to the operating room who is not brain dead for when it comes time for organ procurement. I hope this resolved some questions you might have regarding organ procurement. And if you do like my videos, I'd appreciate a good thumbs up, ring the bell for future videos, and subscribe. I'll see you at the future videos. Take care.